have to remember they think they are just as much as right as you think you're right. When you set out to win that argument, you're only tightening the knot.
Epictetus, one of the Stoics, he said that the way you know you're making progress in life, like the proof that the philosophy is working, he said, is that you're having fewer arguments. Like you're not fighting with people about shit that doesn't matter. And I think that's a pretty good, like, to me, like, I think we think, oh, that person's wise because, like, they know the answer to all things. But it's like, to me, if wisdom isn't translating to being a generally agreeable, chill, easy to get along with person, you're not doing it right.
Yeah. I find that it's always the principle of getting to more by doing less. Like from all of that is always people who accumulate a lot of things. You have more money, I have to feel like I have to do all the things. And they realize, no, the true wealth is getting rid of all that, actually having a very small world. Like the more friends you have, it's actually you want the fewest friends a lot of the time. You get the most value in. Yeah. So it's always the reverse.
Yeah. And I think the idea of what if it's not contribute, well, the Stoics have this idea of a smooth flow of life. Like if it's not translating to chill and connection and the ability not to get sucked into fights and conflict that doesn't really matter, like it's not working.
Right. That's a very good sign. If and the same if the opposite is true. I mean, it is whenever you can get in that state of finding more ways to have peace in all things, the more of a sign that is you're doing the right thing. Yeah.
Like, so Elon Musk has moved all his stuff to this little town. Like, we thought this was going to be like this chill, quiet place. And now the Boring Company, he moved Twitter here, SpaceX is here, and then Tesla.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I remember Tesla.
And then the Tesla factory is right on the other side of the county, but it's we're closer to the Tesla factory than Austin is.
Oh, wow.
So it's crazy. Okay. Yeah, like when we go to like soccer practice and stuff, you can just be like, oh, you can just tell this person moved here to work at the Tesla factory. You can just tell, like, it's just people. So many people.
You can spot them a mile away.
Yeah. But I think, like, he's obviously a genius, but he wakes up every day and gets into the dumbest fights you can possibly imagine. And I go, how smart can you be if that's, like, if you can't, like, how smart can you be if you can't let someone be wrong about something that doesn't involve you? You know what I mean? And so I think what's interesting about your stuff is obviously you're talking about how do you negotiate, how do you talk, but so much of it is just like not doing it.
Yes. Yeah, that's spot on. I mean, I've certainly been disappointed with, I was never big on Twitter to begin with, and I've certainly been disappointed with the trajectory. I feel like it's kind of taken on. Yeah. That's certainly guided by the person who has it and owns it now, right? And I mean, in the book, this is what I live by. Like, the fastest way to lose your peace of mind is to give someone a piece of yours. Yeah. And it's that same philosophy of, if you're always in an argument, if you're always in some kind of chaos of creating the scuffle, the scraps, there is a much bigger concern, and that is within yourself of where are you going? What is what's your why? What's your purpose? If you're always, I mean, I find the people that, let's say in school, I saw, and I know you did too, the kids that were always in the fights had the hardest life that you never saw.
Of course.
You know, the ones that were the bullies, the people that is, they are not getting something fulfilled at home.
That's hard for you to realize when you're their peer, because you're like, why is this person being awful?
We never
and then,
see that.
Then you realize, oh, they had this. They were not winning, even if they were winning that fight. It sucked to be them in every way.
Absolutely, and I've seen it. I can remember there was a kid in class who always fell asleep, and at that time of my life, I had no clue, what their world was. So I kind of like the dumb student, didn't make good grades. Now, we both of our kids are at the ballpark together, and I know his whole backstory of, like, he was living house to house. His parents were gone. He just slept on friends' couches. Right. Terrible. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's you talk about who really overcame, who really had adversity. It wasn't me. It was him. Sure. And so having that realization now as we get older, it's so much that principle that how I see it is the person you see is not the person you're talking to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always that inner dialogue, that inner conversation, that life that they have that you just don't know anything about.
Yeah, you said something once that struck with me. You said the fastest way to lose a relationship is to win the argument.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's true also. It's like you're so intent on being right that you're willing to win this battle and then lose the war, right? And so there's something about conflict. Oh, look, are there some times where you should stand up for yourself and some things really worth fighting for?
Yeah.
Sure, but most things are probably not those things.
Right. You find that the issue that's stated is rarely the true issue.
Sure.
There's always something that is beneath that. And yeah, it's whenever you set out to win an argument, you will eventually, if you always set out to win it, you will lose that relationship.
Yeah.
Because it's the tug of war. It's if you're the person that always has to be right in every argument, every decision, and you fight to the death on every element, nobody will want to be with you. Yeah. It's a very lonely place to be.
Yeah.
Being right doesn't keep you company. It's just not. It's not going to keep you warm at night.
Yeah, there's a Springsteen lyric I like. He says, "We fought so hard over nothing. We fought till nothing remained."
Yeah.
And it's like
That's
you
so
took
true.
Something that was nothing, you turned it into something,
Right.
and then you reduced everything to nothing.
Yeah.
In this thing that, and you talk to people, they're like, "Why don't you speak to these people? What happened here?" And they're like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
It's like you don't even. It's a thing you won't even remember.
Yeah.
But that intensity in the moment, you'll. So you're
Yes.
good at fighting, but bad at picking what to fight about.
Yes. You typically, we know, I mean, we're married. The biggest arguments come from the dumbest things.
Yes.
I mean, the dumbest things. And that's where it gets you, where you go, you know what? No. That's what happens when we get in that argument. Something happens where we go, you know what? No. Now it's the principle of it.
Yes.
As an attorney, I'll definitely have these clients that come in and they want to do something. And I'm like, but what's it getting you?
Yeah.
You have to kind of have to set them down of, I understand it doesn't feel good. You need to see 3 years from now when you're in litigation and you're in every deposition and you're having all this, how much is going to weigh on you at night?
Yeah.
So don't think about this now. I want you to think about the nights that you're not going to be getting sleep for the principle of it. So that for the principle of it, I think
that's
is
one of the big
killer.
lies we tell ourselves, right? It's
You're
like
right.
Generally unprincipled people decide like, no, it's all about the principle.
Exactly.
In this one thing.
You're so right.
It's not like you're not this saint
Yeah.
going through like I would never, anything like you're not making principled decisions day to day.
Yeah.
But then in some conflict, you're like, it's the principle. I got to show the world that this is not okay.
Exactly. Yeah. At some point, it gets into this. Where it goes south the quickest is where you go, you know what? I need to remind them who they're talking to.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that,
Yeah.
That mentality of, I don't know who you think you are.
Right.
As soon as you go down that road, you've lost. Like you don't know it, but you've lost. You've certainly lost a chance to grow closer together with that person.
Well, you've lost any connection to rational sort of self-interest. You're there's something primal about like, hey, if I let people treat me this way, I'm going to end up murdered in my sleep. Like which we could understand in a tribal thing.
Sure.
In a world where we basically lived in gangs, the sort of logic of a gang would be inscribed in our DNA, but that's not the situation. And it's also a really bad way to live.
Well, it's a tiring way to live. But that's what happens in every conflict, every disagreement. If you told me, you know what, Jefferson, I don't disagree. Yeah. My body goes, hey, I didn't like that. Without me even saying it, my brain and body go, we don't like that. We feel undermined. They're trying to attack you, hurt your credibility. And that's I feel threatened. Yeah. And so to attack that threat, I will either say something hurtful to fight you, or I'll say, you know what, forget it. I don't have to be here. And flight. I mean, it's just to get out of that. It's the same natural primal instinct that we have.
It's funny that you would come from a legal background because like there is this, I think, belief. It's a age-old stereotype. It goes back to Shakespeare that lawyers don't have principles. You can't like first kill all the lawyers, right?
Right. Oh yeah.
And then you take one of our most principled politicians of all time. You take Lincoln. Yeah. And he's a lawyer. He makes his living as a lawyer. Yes. And I'm writing about him in the book that I'm doing now. He was fascinated.
Are you really?
Yeah.
I'm a huge Lincoln nerd.
Well, I'll give you a bunch of Lincoln books in the bookstore.
Okay.
But Lincoln's thing, someone made that joke to him. Some kid was saying something about it, and he said he hated it. And he said, he's like, if you can't make an honest living as a lawyer, try to make an honest living not as a lawyer, right? Like try to find some other profession. And it's interesting that he gets the name Honest Abe from being a lawyer,
right?
Like, and he was principled in the way that we're talking about, which is he was like, don't go to trial on this. It's not worth like. So he sort of develops this. I think sometimes people think being principled, insisting, being unyielding, that is like the honest, like true, courageous thing. And actually, you know, discretion being the better part of valor.
Yes.
Like just going, hey, is this worth it? The ability to go like, this is not that important.
Right.
I'm not compromising my principles, but I don't need to prove to you in this scenario by ruining you that I'm insisting or whatever.
Oh, it's my favorite. It's my favorite thing about him, and it's a Team of Rivals, which is by far my favorite of them. Is how when he gets the nomination and then he gets the presidency, and he's the least likely to do any of this, how he brings Stanton, McClellan, Seward, I mean, all of these people into his world. Yeah. And then you have some of them actively against him, openly. Like in the
actively
paper.
undermining him, lying to him.
In the paper.
Yeah.
And they're in his cabinet.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible how he decides not to address it.
Yes.
Like with them. I just find that to be so incredible how, I forget which one it is. I don't think it was Stan, but the one that was most vocal against him and very jealous, who he knew, Abraham knew that it was him who had put it out into the paper and was doing all this stuff. And he said, he didn't even bring it up. Instead, he brought him in closer. Like made him even more important. Yeah. Like that kind of stuff is such a.
And that's what I mean about sort of, that's the sign that you got it.
Yes.
That you're like, this can't bother you.
Right.
It doesn't bother you. You don't take it personally. Yeah. You're able to still get, like, it's not like, I think people think if they're like that, they'll be a doormat or whatever.
Right.
He got what he wanted out of those people. He was almost doing it like from a Machiavellian point of view. Like,
yes.
He was like, I need this from this person.
Yeah.
So I don't care that they'll insult me or drag my name through the mud or whatever.
Right.
They can't harm me as long as I'm getting what I need from them in this situation. I think he took that from the sort of rough and tumble legal world that he came. I mean, imagine being like, you're a lawyer on horseback in these small towns. I mean, like he represented like the nasty. How many cases do you think he represented where the client was accused of bestiality? Because it was more than one.
That's incredible.
That's how nasty his world was.
It's wild. And they did it on a circuit.
Yeah. They would ride around all with each other in the same hotels and inns and stuff.
For anybody listening, that's why they call it like the 9th Circuit, 10th Circuit, is because it was an actual geographic area that they would have a judge and attorneys with them and travel town to town and hold court.
Yes.
And so Abraham would say, I take this client, you take that client.
Sometimes he's the prosecutor. Sometimes he's the defense attorney. Like, you don't get to choose. The judge is usually the same.
Yep.
And I think what comes out of that is this sort of genius for interpersonal dynamics and understanding that people do fucking crazy things, but you can't let them wind you up. Yeah. And you just have to figure out how to get what you need from them and how to prevent this crazy situation from getting crazier. And that's like that's what makes him so uniquely suited for the most sectional conflict you can imagine, a civil war. And there's not just one civil war, but then there's a civil war in the North between, you know, the sort of more conciliatory Democrats and Republicans. He just knows how to deal with factions, which is like a skill that almost no politician seems to be able to have anymore.
No.
Wield unwieldy people.
That quiet strength. Yeah. I mean, I think there's also the sense of right now politicians are set up to have the quick comeback. Yeah. As soon as news comes out, we got to put it on Twitter. We got to have an announcement about it. Like there's no sense of distance. And I was raised, my dad's philosophy is, my dad's very diplomatic, and he's the only one really of his line is like that. Dad is very diplomatic. I have other uncles and cousins that are like bull in a china closet and they want their way, and everybody's in the legal field. Yeah. I'd come in high school, I'd come to my dad with a problem, and I would be up in arms. You know, I'm ready. And he would just go, so, and I'd go, well, Dad, you don't understand. Like, and I'd keep on and go, so.
Meaning, so what?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do about it? And so, and then he always would come down to this line. He'd always say, don't make that your Alamo.
Yeah.
He'd always ask me that, do you want to make that your Alamo?
Sure.
And is that the hill you want to die on?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it was, no, you're right. But that was continually fed into me of the don't make that your Alamo.
Sure.
Of it, that really influenced a lot of the direction of my life. But I feel that is very in line with this Lincoln-esque type of mentality.
Yeah.
Of, yeah, I see that. I see this struggle. I see this fight. Let me give it some time.
Well, what Lincoln had, like Lincoln does have an Alamo, right? The Alamo
For
is
sure.
the country is staying together.
The biggest.
But
Yeah.
everything else is negotiable.
Right.
Right? And that's the genius, is that sort of rigidity and the flexibility.
Yeah.
Whereas I think a lot of people just have the flexibility in that they stand for nothing.
Yes.
Right? They don't care about anything, whatever works. Like this is like Stephen A. Douglas. I don't think we because he was so eloquent in the debates, and then he's kind of like heroic after the war breaks out. He was a piece of shit. The reason we have a civil war is because he puts forth this idea of popular sovereignty,
Right.
because he wants the railroad to run through Chicago.
Right.
Like that's his thing.
Yeah.
He's like if he's flexible on effectively everything because it's good for his political career.
Yes.
And his Alamo is like, hey, if I do all this shit, I can control the course of the transcontinental railroad, and that'll make me rich, right? So he like unleashes all this chaos because he wants the railroad tracks to go.
Yeah.
But so we have people who are too flexible on everything, and then we have people who are too rigid on everything. They end up also getting nothing.
Yeah.
Lincoln has this sort of magical combination of like, hey, the non-negotiable here is we're keeping the Union together. And it gets held against him, but he says, look, if I could free all the slaves to keep the Union together, I would do it.
Right.
If I could free none of the slaves to keep the Union together, I'll do it.
Yeah.
The point is that's the main thing. And then his other main thing is he doesn't think slavery should be expanded. That's
Correct.
legally all he feels he's able to do at that moment.
Yeah.
And so when you have this sense of, okay, these are the two things that matter. These are my Alamos. I'll work with anyone for any length of time in any way to either prevent those from happening or not happening, right?
Yeah.
That and that's his, and he tries everything,
Correct.
like all the different things with every different and it works. But that's what you need, that combination.
Have you seen the movie with Daniel Day-Lewis?
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's the best.
It's so good. I've watched it so many times.
That scene where he's banging on the table and he goes,
Yeah.
to see what is before us.
Yes,
It's the
it's so
only
good.
thing that counts. I in the book, I was like, I never quote from movies like in my
Yeah.
books. It's just not, it doesn't
Yeah,
feel
right,
weighty
right,
enough.
right.
And I was like, please let that be
It's so
based
good.
on something.
Yeah.
And it's not really
It's
based
not.
on something. The part where he goes, I am the president of the United
so
States,
good.
clothed in immense power. That is a real thing.
That
he wrote
is-
that. That's like a real line.
Is it
We don't-
really?
He didn't shout it at the cabinet. He said it. But again,
I
same
get chills
thing.
thinking about it.
Oh, it's one of the greatest.
Didn't he
lines
say
in
like
history.
Hell's
It was-
Bells or something like that? Or what does he say? He has like some little line.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
good God.
Tammany Hall hucksters.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or he's like, yeah, I forgot what he says. He's
Just good God, man.
Yeah,
or
he said,
something.
yeah. I thought he was like Hell's Bells. Yeah, good God. Yeah, he has like these little lines.
Oh, that's one of the great scenes. But even there, he knows, look, you
That's
got to
so good.
pass this amendment.
Yes.
Right? And basically everything, even on this side of bending the law, is legal or is on the table as long as you do the thing. Because so this ability, and that's why I love that quote so much. He's like, to see what's before you is the only thing that counts. So often in arguments, in disagreements, if you don't know, like military strategists call this the center of gravity.
Yeah.
If you don't know the center of gravity of the thing, then you don't know what to go all the way on and
Right.
what you can bend on.
Yes.
But you got that ability to know what's what
Right.
is where it all comes from.
And the ability to see beyond it.
Sure.
There are times where, I see in the litigation side that somebody they have to have the struggle right now.
Yeah.
I have to tell them, I have to prove my point, and it's going, but then what happens after?
Yeah.
And then what happens after that? There is so much they're so focused on that moment in time that
Yes.
they just don't have the capacity, where you have people who just put the blinders on.
Yeah.
They just don't have it to see beyond the conflict of,
Sure.
okay, you say what you want to say. You get it all out. You be the big bad boy. You got it. All right, you're wearing the big pants. Say what you need to say.
Sure.
You got it out. You heard them. You feel good. Now what?
Yeah.
Now what do you got?
Yeah.
You ready to apologize? Yeah, it's
Yes.
like this whole, okay, you got it out. You won the argument. Congrats. What do you got? Where do you go now?
Right.
And that gets lost.
Yeah, no, it gets lost because we are really bad at seeing the costs of winning.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a
Like,
great way to
how's
put
this
it.
person going to feel after you make them feel really fucking stupid?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
after you make them beg for mercy?
Yeah.
Or, like, yeah. And I think obviously a bad lawyer or a bad advisor is going to tell you how to win the thing, but they're not going to tell you, like, hey, you're going to end up being a loser at the end of the winning.
Yeah.
Right?
I see so much that the people who say the thing they wanted to say, that they thought it's going to be this revolutionary, the person across from is going to go, oh, you're so right.
Yeah.
You're a genius. How could I ever be
I
so
am
dumb?
a moron. I am a monster.
You're
Yeah.
so right. Yeah, I agree. And that moment never comes.
Yes.
And it's all they have won is awkward silence the next time they see them or pass them down the hall, or they walk by them in the hallway, go into the living room, in the kitchen, because that's your spouse. You still have to,
Sure.
that weird, like, pass you do if you're both in the kitchen at the same time, you need in that drawer, and you're like, can I get it? I mean, it's just, you can sense that tension. It's still there. And there's so much, people go to social media.
Yeah.
This killed me. This always killed me, is I'd have a family member, most likely, go onto social media and just criticize some political belief. That's fine. And then everybody underneath within comment, and then everybody's just backbiting and being terrible.
Yeah.
The next day, what happened?
Yeah. Or you solved it.
To your 78 followers. You got it. It's all done now.
Yeah.
I get congrats. You solved it. So that kind of stuff. I mean, there are people in small town Texas in particular who do not talk to each other.
Yeah.
Because of what's gone on the last 8 years.
Sure.
5 years. Because of political opinions most of the time, or beliefs that have been spouted on social media, that they thought because they said it or gave their opinion, that all of a sudden it's just done. And that's just not the case.
Yeah, I regret pretty much everything I've ever put on social media as I was thinking it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Anytime I've taken the time to write something or create something or craft it and edit it and whatever, I feel pretty good about it.
Right.
But anything I have said extemporaneously has not held up well. Right? Even if it held up well, I don't think it's that important anymore.
Right.
Right?
It was important in that moment. Just in that moment, and then the news cycle goes, and it's the next day,
and so I think, like, there's this great idea from the Stoics, which is that you always have the power to have no opinion.
Yeah,
and just to be like, I don't have an opinion, and I think that's tough, though, right? To have no opinion is tough because we're opinion having machines. But it
gets put against you, honestly, if people feel like you don't have an opinion or you're too lukewarm on it.
I just mean, like, you have your taste, you have the way you think, so you have the opinion. But so let's say you're not aspiring, you think it's impossible to aspire to have no opinion. You can certainly express fewer opinions, right? Do you know what I mean?
That's
like, it's a more attainable goal. It's like, I'm just going to have, like, you can think whatever you want about your kids' friends or their taste or whatever. You can just also shut the fuck up. Like, you don't have to tell them. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just the idea that you can have the opinion and not share the opinion is weirdly, I think people think that is disempowering. It's actually incredibly empowering. Like, I think this, but I don't need you to know it.
I think that is, and maybe you might think differently, but so much of that has festered because of social media. Sure. It's like they
need you to have the opinion.
Exactly.
The business model depends on you.
There is a place that I open the app and it says, "What are you thinking?" It's my prompt, and I tell them, and you know what happens? Somebody likes it. That gives me value. Somebody commented. Somebody likes it. Oh my goodness, I matter. I'm special. And they continue to just give. Like, when in the history of ever have you criticizing somebody's point of view or giving yours ever changed their mind? Like, ever?
Well, social media started with, what are you doing?
Yes.
And there's something that's interesting.
We're the same age.
Yeah, and then it moved to, what are you thinking, or what are you mad about? And I think that shift is pretty bad for both the audience and the creators. And the only people it's good for is the social networks that monetize engagement, right?
Yeah.
You just, so what are you doing? There's only a finite amount of stuff, right? But you can have an infinite amount of opinions.
Yeah.
And so one is obviously much more incendiary, which one lends itself to conflict. You support what people are doing.
Right.
You disagree with what they are thinking or what they believe. Yeah. And so it goes from a sort of a supportive ethos to a conflict ethos. And it's just bad. It's bad for everyone.
Certainly corrosive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, I was going to say, we're the same age. We remember when Facebook, you had to have a college
I had to wait
email.
I had to wait to get my college email to get my Facebook account.
Yeah, same. I had it was utexas.edu over there. And it was that. It was, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's just taken on an entirely different animal. What I hate is when I see, from the litigation standpoint, and I know lots of attorneys that are in family law, okay, where social media just breeds terrible things, of people that what happens in that forum changes the dynamic of real life for these people, that they don't want to talk to one another, or they decide that somebody is good or bad based upon that. Of what you said, I think is spot on, that we are opinion making machines.
And the idea that you would, like, some of the things that people share, I'm like, you can just keep that to yourself. You know what I mean? Like, I saw something once where someone was talking about some celebrity couple, and they were like, everything I've ever learned about this couple has been against my will, you know? And their point was that, like, all this stuff we don't like about them, they just like can't not share their awfulness. And if they just kept it a little bit closer to the vest, they'd be much more likable and personable. And just the idea that, you don't have to share what you're thinking about stuff.
I think it goes back to the need of wanting to feel special and acknowledged. My favorite is, in small town Texas, you have people that give these like little cliffhangers, and they're like, you really get to find out the people that you trust and keep in your circle. You know what I mean? And like,
because they want you to go, what happened?
Exactly. Or like, hey, send prayers to really need your prayers today, y'all. You know, it's just like, what's going on? They need the feeling of that they're here on this earth and they exist.
Yeah. And there's better, slightly more socially productive ways to do that.
And I like that you can still have your opinion. Just be in the habit of giving less of them. Yeah.
And also, I think the more I get older, and I think the more philosophical I become, the more comfortable I am with you having dumb opinions. Right? Like I don't, like, you know, there's that cartoon, like, I can't come to bed, like someone's wrong on the internet. Like I feel less inclined to correct or intervene. Or let them know what I know.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. I do that with my kids.
Do you?
I mean, like, my son will have he'll try out new words all the time. Last week's word was haste, like hasty. Yeah. And so he'll be, oh, that was so hasty. I'm like, that's not the way we use it. Yeah. But you can keep trying it. And like, even though he's using it wrong, like, go for it, buddy. Sure. Like, it's like, I know what it is, but it's the same kind of dynamic where just because they have a different opinion and you know the truth. Yes. If you want to tell me the sky's purple, knock yourself out. Yeah. You know, that's the inner confidence and the peace that we were talking about. That remains.
Not yucking people's yum. Have you heard that expression?
No, but I love it.
Don't yuck someone else's yum. Oh. It's like, I cannot wrap my head around why you would. I don't like video games, so I don't even like playing them. Right. But I certainly can't wrap my head around watching someone else play video games. Like
millions of people do. It's wild.
And the people that are doing it are like some of the least charismatic, interesting people that I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. But I'll sit there and watch these videos and like, you know, like,
of course.
And then I'll listen to them tell me about them because like, I don't need to convince them that this is dog shit. It definitely sucks. It definitely, like, we've been watching this guy who like explores abandoned buildings, and like his voiceovers, like, it would be a step up if ChatGPT wrote them for him.
Right.
Like he's using all the words wrong. It's so bad. And it's like, and you're just like, look, the algorithm blessed this guy.
Yeah.
And he probably made one video like 10 years ago that blew up, and now he just travels around exploring these things, and they're so bad. But like, I'm just focused on the part of it that I like, which it is cool. Well, like these builds. So like we're watching these videos, you know, and like my thing is to not have that opinion, at least to the person who it would be unpleasant or demoralizing or conflict oriented. If he, you know what I mean? Like my son doesn't listen to this, so yeah. But like I've just tried to get better at being like, I can't watch this. It's terrible.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, because whatever.
Well, and there's now, I mean, a lot of the videos we watch people watching another video.
Yes.
Like those are extremely popular. We're watching somebody else watch and react to a video.
Well, and look, like this, it makes it sound so, okay. For the last 15 years, there was a very popular show called Tosh.0, where a professional comedian would watch videos and make fun of them. Yeah. And he's a talented, smart person.
Right.
And then these are just random
people,
goobers who are much like if you could say that's easy to do, they are doing it much easier in the sense that like they are less smart, less funny, and doing less work.
Right.
But I'm like, if this is what you want to watch, this is what we'll watch. You know what I mean? I'm trying but it's exhausting.
My grandfather, he's from around Jasper, Texas, southeast, St. Augustine, very deep East Texas, and he always has a lot of isms. Yeah. And they're gold. They just kind of come out of anywhere. And typically when I'm talking to him, especially when I was growing up, I was complaining about a friend that I was having trouble with, and I was trying to get this friend to see a certain thing. Like no, you're not understanding. And my grandfather he always just whipped these things out of his pocket. And he said, sometimes you just got to let them walk to get there. And I was like,
good.
What? He's like, sometimes you just got to let them walk to get there. I'm like, okay, that actually makes a lot of sense.
No, those things are so good.
Yeah. You know, I'm trying to get him to just push them right there. Come to me. Now you got to let them walk.
I remember I first moved to New Orleans and had this little apartment, this big sort of ramshackle house on St. Charles, and like we're there like 2 days. It's like one of these crazy tropical storms comes in. It's like rain and stuff. I go, wow, this storm is nuts. I'm talking to this lady. She's sitting on the porch, and she goes, "Don't like the weather? Just wait. It'll change." And I go, "Oh yeah, that's pretty good." I think about that all the time. Yeah. Like, because most of the stuff that drives me nuts that like my kids are into. Yep. Or fads or trends or whatever. They're like, I think about the ones that I used to think that about. Yeah. Where are they now? They're gone.
They're gone.
It's a fad, you know? And so you're trying to arrest the fad or wrap. It's like, it'll take care of itself. It'll burn out.
Yeah. I think that it's the same thing. Like when we first had kids, if you didn't like what your kid's doing, or it's going through like not just that, but you're really having a rough patch. Yeah. The baby is irritable, everything. About every 2 weeks,
there's a phase.
It's gone. And it's gone. And what was bothering you then, or what was having your trouble with now, is gone. It's the same way a lot of the times with our everyday interactions, which means it's happening to us too. Yeah, I mean it's.
Well, I think what your grandfather's expressing, and it's something you get when you talk to people who are much, much older. They have that philosophical view because they've been through it a lot of times, and they've been through longer cycles than you can. So understand that someone who's 80 years old has been through cycles that you're not even aware are cycles because you haven't been alive long enough. Right. Like when you're in high school, you're like, I'm going to be here for 4 years. That's crazy. You've never been through a 4 year. You've never been like, oh, this thing takes 4 years. Right?
Even the day feels long. Yeah. From like 8 to 3.
Exactly. And then, you get through it and you go, oh yeah, sometimes there's things that suck that last 4 years or right. And then that helps you when you have a bad president, or it helps you when you're, okay, I got to work this job for 4 years, but and then you go through a decade cycle of something, then you go through a 2-decade cycle of something, and you just start to get a sense, okay, it's all cyclical or it all passes, but I just wasn't aware of the time horizon yet. It was so long that I was mistaking it as forever or permanence. Yeah. But it's just as ephemeral and transient as a winter storm or any other thing, just over a longer period of time. And in that sense, when you study history, you go, oh yeah, remember like this dynasty in China that like we learned about in one paragraph, but lasted for 800 years.
Right, yeah.
Or even like, you know, like they go like, are we Rome? Like people say this about, are we, do you know how long the decline and fall of Rome was? It was like 800 years. Like that's not a thing to be worried about.
Right.
Like there's definitely things to be worried about, but like we should be so lucky.
Yeah.
Isn't that true? If the rise is as long, if the decline is as long as the rise, it will be over before you. You know, well after you. And so when that wisdom of like, oh yeah, this almost certainly is a phase, a fad, a cycle. And I just haven't endured something long enough to understand that that's what's happening here.
Yeah, you just haven't been in it as long as you need to come out of it.
Yeah.
Do you find that a lot of your stoicism and all, do you find a lot of the wisdom that you've gained, the interest, comes from any of your grandparents at all?
Yeah, I think most elderly people are sort of by definition kind of naturally stoic. At that point, if you put 60, 70, 80 years on this planet, you start to get a sense of what's in your control, what isn't. Yeah. You start to get a sense of both the shortness and the interminableness of life.
Right.
You get a sense of the stupidity of human beings. You get a sense of how uncommon common sense is and how these kind of just basic principles need to be repeated over and over and over again. And I think definitely with my grandparents. But I think just anytime you're around someone and they kind of just have that presence, that sort of even keelness, you're like, I want that.
Yeah.
That seems like a better way.
Yeah.
That's a better frequency than whatever I'm on here.
I think that a lot of what I talk about in the book and a lot of what you have in your books is the same idea of we are pushing and looking for that calm energy. Yeah. Like when I went to my grandparents, it did feel like everything slowed down. Sure. It did feel like I was secure and I was safe. And, you know, my grandfather, you could ask him, everything was just so slow. You could say, hey, did you have that wrench in the shed? And he'd go, yeah. You know what I mean? You'd have 6 seconds before you'd ever get any kind of information. Or my favorite were when my grandmother and grandfather were in the same room, and she's going off about something. She's telling me about this, and you know the cat, and we had something problem. She's got some this, and she's just talking on it. And he usually would just have something, and maybe it's the paper, and she's grappling about something. He's going, like she's talking, and he's going, yeah, I know it, you know. And he's every once in a while he'd give her a cockeyed look, you know. But it's just this sense of they've lived long enough that they've seen it all, they felt it all.
How long were your grandparents married?
They're still married.
How long?
Oh my goodness, that's over 60 years.
So like they've had bad decades.
Oh my goodness.
Do you know what I mean? Like if you can wrap your head, you go like, man, my wife and I have been fighting so much lately. Right. You know, it's like been like 2 weeks of like whatever, and it's like, can you imagine? They're probably like, oh man, 72. I don't know. Like we slept in 7 separate bedrooms for 2 years. Oh yeah, you know, and you're just like, okay, you elongate the scale. Yeah, and all the things that feel very urgent and massively significant, their significance is reduced.
Yeah, my favorite's when she just totally roasts him right in front of him, and he does not even care. She's like complaining about his medicine routine or something, or what he did and that. And he just doesn't even faze him. And I see that. Let's put it like in a practical sense of you're at work, you have an email or whatever. In that moment, you get heated. You want to just send that text back, that email back. Rarely, if you wait just one day, does it have nearly the impact or consequence, or you really even have the care to do what you were going to do the day before, say what you were going to say.
Well, you know, we always like to have the last word, right? And it was very empowering for me to realize I could just always have the last word as far as I was concerned, right? That's good. So like, because I realized I was going back and forth with someone when I was at American Apparel. Like I sent them this, like, you know, we'd been going back and forth. They did all this, and I was like, laid it all out. I said what I had to say, and then I just didn't get a reply. So I was like, I got the last word. I done. They obviously understood that I eviscerated them,
Right.
accepted defeat.
I won.
And I won. And then it was like, a couple months later, I had to send them an email about something else. I searched in my inbox for them, and I found out they'd replied. I just hadn't seen it.
You didn't know.
And then I went, I can just not answer this. I can just I just had 3 months where I thought I got the last word, but I didn't. It was sitting.
Right, yeah.
Them getting the last word was sitting
so
here right now.
good.
And then I thought, I'm just going to keep it this way.
Right.
I'm not going to open this email.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to give myself the last word. And you know what? I'm going to give them the last word.
Yep.
And by the way, everything's been fine ever since.
Yeah.
And so just the idea of like, hey, I'm going to say what I have to say. Right?
Yes.
And then I'm going to let that be the end of it. If you want to reply, I'll listen to you. I just don't have to accept it. I don't have to let it get to, I don't have to see in my mind that you somehow beat me or own me or we're now on uneven footings. Like, we just had this argument with someone we paid to do something that's crazy. And then my wife and we went into this meeting. We were like, look, let's just go into this. We know we're right.
Yeah.
We'll let him say whatever he wants. And then we'll get the thing we need done. We'll get the agreement to get the thing we need done. And he can blame whoever he wants. He can vent however he wants. But like, so, he leaves the conversation thinking he's gotten the last word. We left the conversation getting the thing resolved.
Right.
Everybody wins.
Yeah.
You have the ability to do that if you choose.
If you have the discipline for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely that sense of, and I see it in arguments, the one who has the last word often loses. They're the one that
you paid dearly to get the last word.
Yes, that's exactly right. And when you're not that person, you always look like the bigger person in the argument. And I've done it before at a mediation where it was totally strategic of doing this, where I knew the other side very, very mouthy, very mouthy. And we have these things called opening sessions. You can have to choose them. And I wanted one for this reason. We got together, and of course the other attorney, you kind of had to have your opening statement. Yeah. In other words, other attorney starts going on why their case is so good, why blah, blah, blah. And then their client gets to share a few things and how bad we are, how good they are. And we just let them go. Yeah. We just let them go. And then when they were done, we just said, well, thank you very much. We'd like to take a break. And then we left. Yeah. Like the mediator was in on this, all was good. Yeah. We took a really, really, really long break. And it got to the point where the other side was dying to hear from us. Like it was, had we spoken in that moment, they would never have listened. Yeah. But we got to where we let them be the one that had the last word, so to speak. And then we waited like 4 hours until we wanted to come back. Yeah. And by that time, they were like dying to hear what we were going to say. Right. And so whenever you can add that distance between what they say and when you respond, like that's all the control right there. Because there's some people that they just want the fight. Yeah. Like there are people that were raised in these really bad environments. I say bad environments. Sure. Maybe not as productive environments where they go, argue with me. I need to feel like you're in it with me. I need to, they like it. They have to have the argument. Yeah. And in many ways, when you feel like you always have to have the last word, you're typically the one that has to apologize first. Yeah. I feel like that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. You use the word discipline. I think like the discipline to say like, the discipline to be able to go, I'm pissed off. What you're doing is unjust. It's unfair. But I don't need this thing. Yeah. I'm going to like how many business partner disputes almost invariably just buy the person out. Yeah. What is the amount of money that will make this go away? Yeah. There is almost no chance that litigating this thing will end better for either of you.
Never does.
And certainly it will take longer. So what is the amount of money? Right. Now, look, are there some cases where you have to demonstrate a credible threat that you're willing to litigate so they don't just get to pick an unlimited number? Sure. But like if you go into it knowing, hey, I'm not going to allow this to, it takes two to fight. So I'm not going to allow this to ever become that thing. Right. That takes a lot of discipline. Like people think the civil rights movement was these people protesting and then just getting, attacked. The amount of discipline that they had trained themselves in to not fight back was incredible. And they went to schools there were schools that they went to. And then
unreal.
there were like training sessions where they would practice, like one person would be the white person and the other person would be the black person. And often when there were sort of diverse civil rights protest groups, the white people would have to assume the role of the bad guy, the bad white people, and practice saying horrendous shit. So you could actually have exposure to not letting your buttons get pressed as someone is pressing the buttons. And the amount of discipline it takes. I mean, like your most basic, there's this famous scene I talk about it, I think in Discipline's Destiny, where Martin Luther King's giving this speech and this man comes on stage and just starts beating Martin Luther King, like in front of 1,000 people. And like there's this moment where like every biological self-preservation and then also just like that hurt out, when boys are fighting and then or wrestling and then it turns into a real fight, like that's happening. And he just had like, people were just amazed at the discipline he has. They said he dropped his hands like a baby. Like they could hear like fist on flesh, and you like, we don't properly qualify that as discipline because it seems like the opposite of discipline,
right?
But that's what it was. To go like, are you done?
Yeah.
Let's move on.
I saw when I was clerking, I was with a local county judge, and there were 2 attorneys that were in his office, in his chambers, and I was sitting in the corner, and they're just going after it and each other. 2 chairs, and there's like, Judge, she did and he did, and they're just going after each other, and he's just listening the whole time, and he just listens, and they get it, and he goes, "You done?
Yeah.
You get it all out, and this is time. Y'all get it all out.
Yeah.
All right, thank y'all. Appreciate it." And then they took off. Like, right, that was it. There's something to be said for, and I think you put it wonderfully, these moments where someone decides to walk on the pier. It's their bad behavior. It's that thing that they said that really, let's say it's a derogatory, offensive, it's an insult. They're walking themselves out on a ledge, and you could either decide to ratchet it up, or just let them be exposed. Like, exposure of that kind of behavior is frightening to them when you can put that spotlight.
Sure, it's a very vulnerable place to suddenly be.
Extremely. And so when, for example, like when somebody, how I teach, if somebody says something that's condescending, and if you can, instead of being direct with it, you kind of treat it as like water, like it's not affecting you. You could say something as simple as, "How do you feel when you say that to me?" Or "Did you mean for that to sound rude?" I mean, it just puts such a spotlight on their behavior that now, without you having to do anything, it's kind of, you're dropping your hands and letting their behavior be the one that speaks.
There's a story about Frederick Douglass. He's trying to get on some stagecoach or train, and he's traveling in this party of people, and they goes, "You got to go to the back of the car, right? You're not allowed in the front." And one of the white members of the party goes, "I'm so sorry, you've been degraded in this manner. This is horrible." And he goes, "These people don't have the power to degrade me.
Yeah,
I'm Frederick Douglass."
Yeah.
And so it feels disempowering to like let someone speak to you a certain way, or let someone treat you a certain way, to allow certain things to go on. And it's actually incredibly empowering. I mean, the self-command and self-confidence you have to go like, it doesn't matter where I sit on this car.
Right.
That doesn't change. Now, that doesn't mean you accept the injustice of it legally. Yeah. Clearly, his whole life is dedicated to overturning all of these things and seizing his basic rights as a human being. I mean, this is a guy who beats the shit out of his own overseer, and realizes, this is a famous story he tells in his memoirs, he beats the shit out of the guy who was about to whip him, and he says, the day I realized that I would not be whipped anymore was the day I became half free. So this is not a guy who just endures abuse, but he just realizes that external things have no purchase or power over sort of who we are. And so I think when you can have this sort of confidence and accept the empowerment of like, I'm okay with you being wrong. I'm okay with you thinking that about me.
Yeah.
I'm okay with you, trying X, Y, or Z, because I know who I am. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And I have confidence in my ability to sort of figure this out. That's a pretty magical / powerful and I think inspiring place to come to life through.
I think anytime you can have that mindset of knowing who you are and being in that purpose, you're always going to talk and communicate from a position of strength. There's a difference of me saying, you can't talk to me that way, versus I don't accept the way you're talking to me.
Yes.
Like that's very much such a mindset of what I'm trying to control versus you can behave how you want. That's not what I do.
Well, this is the definition of Stoicism, the idea that you can't make them not do it.
Right.
But you can make yourself not react to it or be like the worst thing that would happen, the Stoics would say, is not that somebody says something horrible to you and then you allow yourself to be harmed by that. That's sort of the first failure. Like that somebody said something and you decide to interpret it as rude and now your feelings are hurt because you're a fragile little snowflake. That's a failure of Stoicism. But the second failure of Stoicism, of your Stoicism, would be somebody says something to you or does something to you, and then you become a different person in getting revenge or showing them, hey, you can't talk to me that way.
Right.
That's where we actually truly get harmed, is when this person who they are the party in the wrong, in the divorce, the business dispute, the legal thing, whatever, they are wrong. But then if they turn you into this person that you don't even recognize, like then they've truly won.
Right.
You know, like if you become that embittered, angry, consumed person because of it, like they definitely won.
Yeah, I think that there's this sense of you never give them a reason to make you feel less or to make you feel like you are degrading your character.
Yeah.
There's that idea, I forgot who said it, is if you argue with a fool, like onlookers won't know the difference.
Oh, I like the one, if you argue with a fool, they'll call you foolish. Or if you talk sense to a fool, they'll call you foolish.
Exactly. Yeah. It's that. Yeah. It's, you have to remember, they think they are just as much as right.
Sure.
As you think you're right.
Yeah.
And so when you set out to win that argument, you're only tightening the knot. Yeah. And the worse things you say to each other, the harder you pull. It is always the longer it takes to heal.
Sure.
Or longer it takes to untie that knot. And sometimes it takes years.
Yeah.
There are family members who haven't spoken to each other in years. I'm talking mother, daughter, dad, son. I mean, just for years, don't talk to each other because at some point in time, they pulled on that knot and decided this is the only direction I'm going.
Yeah, I like you can't reason a person out of a position they didn't reason themselves into.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And just going, okay, this is an irrational, emotional thing for you. Not even to be, sometimes you're saying that in a condescending way, like you're a crazy person, you believe in a conspiracy theory. No amount of evidence is pulling you out of this. But also it's just like, hey, no, this is emotional to you. This is connected to something in your childhood. This is something you're passionate about, whatever. I'm not going to argue you out of that.
Right.
No amount of facts or figures is what's going to persuade you here.
Yeah.
So what is going to persuade you? I don't know the answer, but it's not that. So let's start by just not wasting a bunch of time trying that.
What I've found is that when there is someone who is, let's say, 100% committed to what they have, the only way I can get them to open up their mind at all is if I start asking them questions about what they believe and how they came to believe it and what they rely that on. And then usually what I find as it became a part of who they are, it became their identity. So if I were to just tell them, if I say, Ron, you're wrong, most likely I'm saying that thing you learned at church camp when you were in second grade is wrong. I'm telling you your grandmother's wrong. I'm telling these people who molded and shaped you are wrong and terrible and dumb. So if it's like, I'm calling you dumb, I'm calling everything you once knew dumb.
Right.
And that is part of your identity. And you'll never get them to come to your side of the court by just saying you're wrong.
Yeah.
But if I get really curious about, and I don't really like using that word as much, curious. I think it can be overused. If I ask questions that are truly interested in how you came to believe that, naturally in the progression of that conversation, at the end, what I have found is they go, not that they go, they often will kind of go, well, I just poured all of my cup out. What do you have in yours?
Yeah.
And then that's where they kind of are open to hearing how you believe what you believe. And they're like, huh, okay. And you find out that how you each got there wasn't unreasonable at all.
I'm a big believer in stipulating. So I go,
oh,
I'll stipulate. Here's what I think. Let's stipulate what you think.
Good.
Now what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because you'll spend a lot of time arguing over your facts. Like,
Right.
well, no, this is true. Well, in my view, it happened this way. Like when we went through this conflict with this guy, we're like, okay, here's why you think we're here.
Right.
Here's why I think we're here.
Yeah.
We're here.
Yeah.
I don't like you.
Yeah.
You don't like me.
Yeah.
We would like to not have any more, as few interactions as possible. We would like to cease collaborating.
Yeah.
So what do we need to do to get an end date to this project?
Yeah.
A list of responsibilities, a list of things that I owe you.
Yep.
And then let's never talk again. You know what I mean?
No.
As opposed to let me win, get you to roll over and expose your belly, and then I'm the dominant one. You know, like it's not going to happen.
Yeah. And people use that a lot in trial. So we have stipulations at trial.
Yeah.
And attorneys that are very good at it will use them to their advantage, because a lot of the times, just like you said, you have certain sides and clients that get so caught up in trying to prove a fact.
Yes.
When that's not even the fact that matters.
Yes.
It's not
material.
It's not material. It's not determinative of the case, because at the end of the day, a jury gets a set of questions from a jury pattern charge, jury pattern instructions. What are they going to have? And so this little bitty fact plays no chance whatsoever. So it's really strategic. Yeah. And you typically change stipulations right at the end. You can cut somebody's entire case of what they were all planning on by saying, "Oh, Your Honor, we agree with that."
Yeah, we'll stipulate to that.
Stipulate, Your Honor.
Yeah.
That right there. And they go, but I had we had 3 witnesses prepare for this, and I spent 2 weeks preparing. Yeah, if you can just get down to this is what we stipulate, this is what I agree to, not agree to, where does that leave us?
Yes. What are we doing?
Exactly.
What is the resolution? Because clearly this is not working.
Yeah.
So how do we wrap this up?
Yeah.
As opposed to what I think is tempting from an irrational standpoint, and then sort of a status quo, is just staying in the shit of it.
Yeah.
You know, just like, let's just go round and round and round and round.
You live with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just lives in your head. And what I find is that what will never happen is the extremes. What you ultimately want is not at all what they will ever go to.
Yeah, sure.
And their extreme is something you will never go to. Yeah. So the whole, like, what do you want? They're like, no, I'm never giving you that in a million years, because that's what you want.
Yeah.
Same thing. It's like you have to find a way to take a haircut and another haircut and another haircut of just what will you're not going to be happy with it. Like every mediation, nobody's happy.
Yeah.
Nobody got what they wanted.
Right. Well, and what mediation and what settlement is all about, and I think it's a great principle to apply to the rest of your life, is like, okay, if you win or I win, what's this going to cost? Like, what does this cost? Like, verdict aside, this is going to cost X. Yeah. Right? In legal fees for both of us.
Not even just money, but I mean just time effort,
this is what it's going to cost. Mm-hmm. So like basically anything less than that, or maybe even anything close to that, is worth considering as close to the outset as possible.
Yeah.
And then you take all the uncertainty out and you move the fuck on.
You got it. It's like this idea of we can agree that what we're trying to do is reduce the pain for each of us.
Yes.
And so how can we reduce the most pain for both of us?
Yes.
I mean, that's really what you're just trying to sift and sift and sift. And you find people that go, I'm never taking anything less than this. They always do.
Yeah.
The person's going, I will never do this. They always do. If you're really interested in coming down, it's not what you want. It's ultimately what you need. And what you need is just to have that pain gone.
No, and it's weird to think like this is what Lincoln learns in 5,000 cases over 25 years. Incredible. And it's like there wasn't a better person to navigate something like the Civil War than Lincoln.
And I love that. It's just, to me, it's such the coolest story of you have each one of them, his biggest opponents and critics.
Yeah.
And then you have them just weeping when he died.
Yes.
Like just couldn't, they were inconsolable.
I mean, Stanton is the one who like fucks him when they're both lawyers.
Right, yeah.
And then he's the one who basically says like the last words to him as he dies. He says, now he belongs to the ages.
To the ages.
You're just like the arc, you know, Lincoln talked about how we turn our enemies into friends.
Yeah.
He didn't just mean that like, oh, that's what the country should do. That was his actual personal philosophy that he embodies as a leader. It's just mind blowing.
I think it's such a beautiful, beautiful example of when you can feed the other person what they're missing. And at that point, it's just to feel like they're part of the conversation, like they matter. And he had such an effective way of telling stories and almost kind of these parable-esque type of philosophies of how he taught principles, going with a guy he was not reactionary.
Yeah.
He looked weird. He walked weird. This face is just melancholy until he started talking. The guy you never suspect, it just turned into the greatest healer, and that includes with his friends.
And apparently it was like almost preposterous. Like people be arguing politics at a table, and he would just interject with some inane story. Like he was just the master of like, let's not do this.
Exactly.
Let's just not do this. Like, what about this fun? Or like the cabinet would come in and he's just like, I want to read to you this dumb, this dumb joke book, you know?
Yeah. He was always telling stories, and they're like, not this again. Like,
right. But it was a way of like just utterly disarming and dismantling the points of contention.
Yeah, having the sense of patience to be able to have that. It's I love Team of Rivals, I think. And I mean, even the relationship with his wife. I mean, just he's like, she's just doing her thing. But he was had such a way of doing it.
All right, I want to show you some Lincoln books.
I'm excited, man. Yeah.